There she is. Week 2 of owning the bug. We just had almost a repeat of what happened out in South Dakota. So when we picked the car up on the first day we had it, about 20 minutes into owning it, the clutch basically gave out, slipped it into gear, lurched us forward and died, and we were able to get it off the road and everything. But 2 nights ago, I'm driving this down to pick up my daughter, and almost the same issue. It felt the same. Basically, slipped. I had the clutch in all the way, slipped back into gear, and yeah, it was in first gear, and it just lurched forward, died again. So I got out, pushed it to the side of the road, had some people help me, and left it there overnight, and then decided, since I couldn't get it to a shop, I'd have them bring it home. So here it sits. Got under it the other day, and it looks like the clutch cable, which is new, is still attached to the transmission arm. So it's this little kind of triangle arm, and it's got it hooked on the end, and it's got a little wing nut on the end of it to make the adjustment of how much play there is on the clutch forward and back. But essentially, it's weird because the clutch has no pressure. When I push down on the clutch, there's just nothing there. However, it's still attached to that piece in the back, and I can see it move. When I push on the clutch, you can see that thing move a little bit. It's not moving as much as it should. So I don't know if maybe the cable itself got stretched out, or if there's something going on underneath the pedal assembly. So the stuff I've been reading online says, take a look at the pedal assembly. The hook that's kind of oriented like this has the little piece that puts the clutch cable right onto it. That could be worn out, so that could be dropping it down a little bit deeper. And then there's something inside of the actual tunnel where the cable goes through also that could be fractured. So I'm basically looking at that stuff today. I'm gonna see if I can't get you under the car, taking a look at that piece I'm talking about. So I'm gonna pause this here and flip you around. Okay, well, here we are. This is the inside of the car. I went ahead and pulled the carpet back a little bit so I could see the tree. I can't see anything inside of there yet. I can't see the hook because there's a steel portion bolted on here. Let me get in close. So there's 2 17mm bolts in here. I took the accelerator pedal and took that spring off and pulled it back, so that's out of the way. Dang it. You can see the accelerator cable up on top. I can't see the actual cable that goes to the clutch, and it's behind this bit in here, so I'm gonna get this off to see if it's still attached, and it sounds like it's attached. I can actually hear it pulling in the tunnel back here when I push that clutch in. But just to illustrate, I mean, the clutch is so soft, right? I mean, I can push it down with my hand, it goes to the floor, like there's just nothing there. And that's just it. It won't engage the actual transmission to get it going. So we're gonna get under the car here and see if I can show you what's up. It's gonna be interesting. So way back there, not quite there, maybe on the left of that, back there. All right, I decided to pull this wheel off too, so I can get clearance to get in there and adjust that wing nut. I've never seen a wheel that looks quite like this before. I'm gonna go ahead and just take off all the bolts. Very interesting piece here. There's a cotter pin here. I'm gonna have to fold that back, pull the cotter pin out, I suppose. Man, I'm just never seen one like this. We'll see. This little guy came with the car. Handy dandy lug nut wrench. See if I can find something to slip through there and crank away on it. Found an old tire iron, and it's kind of fused onto this. Been fused onto this little socket that I've decided to use as a breaker. I know I'm jacked up, but I figured the brake's on. Looks like it's holding well enough. This tire's not spinning, so we'll just break them loose here. Otherwise, I'd have to drop it back down onto the ground. that. There's a drum brake. Hey, it does have an adjustment hole. That's cool. I was wondering about that. So, just curious to see what I can see in there. I think I'm gonna go up and behind to get to that adjustment nut. Okay, well here's that cable and the arm again. You can see the wing nut on the end of it. That's what I'm trying to turn. Right now it's not turning properly because the cable's twisting, and I'd read about that. I'm gonna try to grab a hold of the cable with vice grips and just kind of hold it in place while I spin the wing nut if I can. There's still a lot of tension on that arm. I tried to pull it by hand. That spring that's around it is working well. There's a black spring at the base of it you might be able to see. So the spring's not an issue either. So back in a minute. Hoping you guys can see that. Got the vice grip sitting right on the cable now. See it up here a little bit. So there's the back end of the vice grips right here. Wow, that's so huge. And then the front end of it is hooked up under there, right onto the cable. That's really, can't get the light in that way, sorry guys. There you are. So now you can see the vice grips hooking onto the kind of the thick end of that cable, not really the cable itself, but the connection point. And I'm just gonna go up there and spin that wing nut and see what happens. And there's my cat. Brave. You might be able to see what's going on in there. I'm trying to get that wing nut spun. Right now I'm just using a set of pliers. I've got the vice grips on there still. It was turning by hand pretty easily, then it got stuck. So I started turning by pliers, and it's coming around. As I say that, it's not coming around. As I've been turning it, I've been checking the clutch pedal a little bit, and it's definitely getting stiffer as well. Coming towards the end of this thing, so I don't know how much clutch I'm going to get out of it, but it's making me think that part of the issue really is that this cable got stretched, or maybe it did come, or maybe the pedal assembly is a little worn out and it's sitting deep in that hook on the other end. So we'll get this tightened up, try the clutch, see if it works. If it doesn't, then I'm going to go ahead and pull the pedal assembly apart and see what's going on there. In which case, if the pedal assembly is fudged up, I'll have to replace that and then come back here and loosen this guy back up probably when I get a new one. If it's good at that end, then I'm going to actually pull the whole cable out, especially if the clutch feels a lot better once I get this tight. So then I can pull the cable out and see if, even though it's a new cable, at least the person that sold me the car said it's brand new. If it is new, see if anything happened to it. Then there's one other possibility. Somebody mentioned that in that tunnel there are some parts that can fracture. I have no idea how you fix something like that. That's going to be a whole nother animal. Getting there. I'll speed this up in the video so it's not so bloody boring. Hopefully you can see something. Bring it up here and see what you can see from where I'm looking. Maybe you can see my hand in here. Oops, where are we? Hi. So there's the wing nut again. I'm just really trying to crank away on it. Unfortunately, I need to go grab my pliers again. See if I can get on the end of it. Very hard to see. Okay, I'll stop you. All right, so I got as far as I could on this end. Gonna put all this stuff back together. Basically, got the wing nut adjusted down. I think it's too far down. It's down almost as far as it can go. Just had pushed on the clutch again a couple times, and the arm's definitely moving. I think it's moving a little bit better than it did. The clutch feels a lot better, so at least I know I've got tension in there. I'm gonna go ahead and just throw everything back together, see if it'll slip into gear and how good bad it is. If it's still not going in, then I'll go ahead and take that pedal assembly apart. Let you guys know here in a minute. All right, definitely not okay. I tightened up that cable, and now when I push in the clutch, it makes this horrible whining sound. So I think it might be like throwout bearing or something. Listen, I'm just gonna push a little bit. Get this crazy whine. Yeah, that's metallic and nasty, and something bad's happening in there. So engine's running fine. I'm just gonna let it idle for a minute, but there's definitely internals on the transmission that are ugly. So to decide if I want to take a stab at fixing that, or if that's something for the shop. All right, bye. So just sitting here reflecting on this for a minute. Bought this car as a rebuild from some guys in South Dakota, and we had the fracture of the clutch arm, which stalled us out. Now what looks like a bad throwout bearing. They did tell me that the transmission was original, so perhaps it was just sitting for too long, the transmission that they put in here. And I think it's well, throwout bearing, clutch release bearing. Did some reading on diagnostics on your clutch, and what it means when you push in or when you release. I can't even get the clutch in. So basically, as I push the pedal, the noise just becomes horrendous. It's like that grinding noise you heard. So I'm thinking it probably is the clutch release bearing. Don't know the age of the transmission. We've got the size of the engine, which is a 1600 cc. They all kind of bolt together, is what I understand too. So if your engine is putting too much power into an older transmission, maybe that's got something to do with it. There's also a guide sleeve that's supposed to help the bearing out a little bit too, and I don't know if this one has a guide sleeve or not. So I have the option of figuring out what I want to do here. I can try to pull the engine myself. Never done that before, but I'm gonna have to eventually anyhow, so I might just go ahead and do that. As I've said a couple times, this is supposed to be my daily commuter, so I only need it a couple of days a week, but I need it on Thursdays and Fridays, and then weekends, so I guess 3 to 4 days a week. So I've got 3 days to try to decide and see how far I can get with this. The clutch release bearing is pretty cheap. I just looked online, it's like 35 bucks. There's a guide sleeve that's 15, 20 bucks. The quality of those are a little bit different. You can and should buy hopefully one that's more to the German specs. There's some Chinese versions that people are having trouble with that seem to break down a little bit quicker. I don't know. Once I get it apart, I may be able to take a look at the clutch and everything else too. Might be in over my head a little bit, but it's worth a shot. These things are supposed to be fairly easy to remove. So I'm gonna go look at some videos on how to drop an engine at home without a lot of stuff, and we'll see, because I don't have any kind of hoist or anything. I just have that jack that I showed you guys earlier, so it's a little 2 1/4 ton jack. Should be able to release the motor, but I don't know how in the heck you're supposed to get it underneath the car. Figure it out. Go watch some stuff. All right, guys, bye.